Hello my friends and welcome. Yesterday I watched and even streamed a video of the meeting between President Vladimir Zelensky and Donald Trump. I was surprised about that meeting to happen. Actually, it was announced I think 3 or 4 days before the meeting actually happened. I'm surprised because Donald Trump himself said before that he will meet with Putin or Zelensky only at the very final stage of the agreement. Yeah, so-called peace agreement, all of those 28 points or whatever that Donald Trump really wants to force Ukraine or Russia even to sign. Well, as we know already, the project initially originates from Russia itself. The architect of it is Kirill Dmitriev together with Ushakov, and they just propelled those peace plan points to Davydov and Kushner, and they delivered it to Donald Trump, and I guess Donald Trump even didn't read it. The White House administration just started to say that it's American peace proposal, that's it. They forced Ukraine really to sign the peace deal until Christmas. Yeah, there are more and more deadlines that Donald Trump establishes on Ukraine. You need to sign it today, tomorrow. But yesterday, one more surprise, actually, that Donald Trump stated that no more deadlines are valid for him, for this peace agreement. And overall, he stated, and Zelensky nodded, that the result of those negotiations is still unknown. Donald Trump was asked about whether the peace agreements are not signed or it's impossible to achieve. Well, he said that those sides will just continue to fight. That's what he stated. So it is now understandable that if Russia disagrees with this peace proposal, Donald Trump will not help Ukraine in a military way. Well, still there is a tiny little chance for it, but judging on Trump's rhetorics, it will not happen anytime soon, and Russia, like this status quo, is still out there. Russia wants to create some sort of the business partnership together with Trump's family. It is evident that Trump's family is also very interested in that, and also some of the business partners like Davydov and Kushner. Their goal is basically not to stop those atrocities happening in Ukraine, those war crimes. Russia continues to strike Ukraine very hard, but overall, what drives those peace agreements is just to remove the obstacle, Ukraine itself, in a way to achieve some sort of the negotiation business deal with Russia. It is very low from the White House, but that is all about Donald Trump. He is not really a politician leader in his core. He is a businessman and he wants to make the deal with Russia, but Russia has absolutely different proposals, and Putin lives in his own world, and it's not about deals or money or something like that. Putin says it openly in most of his interviews that he wants to make Russia great again. It is his goal to restore Soviet or Russian empire as it was with previous borders. And Ukraine is just one more step for Russia to achieve this goal. The problem for Russia, however, that their economy will not allow it to happen. From what we already witness, that Ukraine is still capable to defend itself, and the progress of the Russian army on the front lines is very slow. By the way, today I'm gonna publish, or maybe tomorrow, a video that I recorded yesterday about the Russian economy, that definitely it went down in every sort of the sphere, so stand by for that video. I just want to record this new one because the events happened yesterday, they are very fresh, so just to recall what happened between Zelensky, Donald Trump, and how it all gonna influence the war in Ukraine. So for most of the experts, even from legacy media, for me and you, it is already understandable that the goals of those peace agreements, they are unachievable because every side pursues its own goals. Yeah, so they are unique for Putin, they're unique for Donald Trump. Yeah, Russian regime, they want to make the deal between the United States and Russia, some sort of the business proposal. They have this common interest, but it's not the main one. It's far to be something outstandingly special. They just propose this business component to achieve their result on the battlefield and with Ukraine. And why does Zelensky play this game with the peace agreement? Well, because still Ukraine obtains some of the support from the United States. even via Pearl program, but still United States weapons, they're going to Ukraine, plus intelligence information. Yeah, Ukraine is not that dependent nowadays from the United States compared to what it was before with Joe Biden in administration, but Donald Trump just ruined this leverage possible to act on Ukraine. Now he just diplomatically forces or sometimes even abuses, harasses Ukraine most of the time, but that's the only thing he may manipulate with Ukraine. Canceling the Pearl program and intelligence support, well, it may harm Ukraine, but it will not force Ukraine to surrender to Russia. So absolutely America cannot influence Ukraine, and moreover, they cannot influence Russia. The only thing how they may stop the war in Ukraine is to support Ukraine with lots of the weapons, and Ukraine physically may stop Russia on its own territory. That's the only variant. But Russia changed it because they're very successful in manipulating Donald Trump and his circle. So we see this sort of the attitude. And yesterday, once again, there was the proof that for Donald Trump there is no difference between victim and aggressor. Then he was asked the question about the recent Russian attack on Ukraine, on Kiev. Then Russia hit lots of the civilian buildings, even hospitals, lots of the civilian life losses. Well, he compared that to Ukrainian attacks. He immediately turned the question like Ukraine is attacking Russia too. He said, it's not a bad thing, I'm not telling that it's bad, but they attack each other. But the thing is that what Russia strikes in Ukraine and what Ukraine strikes in Russia, those are two complete differences. And Donald Trump, it seems like he doesn't understand. Well, before it was different. Donald Trump really condemned the Russian strikes on Ukraine. I think it was influence of Melania Trump, and Donald Trump said it himself that, and then I go home, I said, oh, it was a wonderful talk with President Putin, but Melania said, oh, you see, they hit again Kiev city or something else, people are dying, and Trump, oh shit, it's bad. But now it seems like he's not communicating with Melania or something, so he completely degraded in the sphere. There is no humanity, zero, coming from Donald Trump, but it's his personality, he's an narcissist, psychopath. Plus, Donald Trump is really incompetent. He spoke with Putin right before the meeting with Zelensky, and obviously he was influenced by this Russian propaganda coming from Putin. Donald Trump said that they spoke 2.5 hours. Russian side said 1 hour and 15 minutes, so 75 minutes. I don't know whom to trust, but it seems like I trust here more to the Russian side, because they usually over-exaggerate the time they speak with Donald Trump. And it was evident how Trump responded on those questions from journalists that he was under this influence of Putin, because he even said that Putin wants peace, yes, he said it, and also Putin wants Ukraine to succeed. Zelensky couldn't handle that. Well, he was still calm, but he was smiling and the mimics showed that he really was surprised by that, and it really shows the attitude of absolutely everyone, I guess, including Zelensky, that everything of that is just bullshit. How can Putin wish Ukraine succeed or success if he continued to bomb Ukrainian cities with gliding bombs, with cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles, drones, and basically he started this war. He started this war for Ukraine to succeed, or what? So after almost 1 year of the Donald Trump's presidency, he still cannot understand what is happening. He doesn't have those advisors who really know the topic, and if someone convinces Donald Trump of something, for example Davydov or Putin, it will be kind of hard to change Trump's mind. So now it is mostly the Russian software that Putin recently updated with his call, and the call again happened before the meeting with Zelensky, exactly as the last time. Then Davydov said to Russia, you need to call Donald Trump right before the meeting with Zelensky, and that led to the cancellation of any sort of the talks, even about Tomahawk missiles. But as I mentioned here before, still there is the chance to get back to the talk again, but I give it just small percentage of the chance. I do not expect anything good from Donald Trump towards Ukraine and towards the free world by the time Donald Trump is the president. Also, one more thing that was uncovered for me yesterday during the meeting, that definitely there was the talk about possible referendum. So Zelensky commented on that he wants referendum to be conducted for Ukrainians to get this responsibility, I guess, for the future of Ukraine, and they're gonna discuss the peace plan in general. So not just the territorial concessions, but all of the points of the peace plan will be voted potentially on the referendum. So the intention is to conduct this referendum, but whether it's possible to do it, no one knows, because Trump, it is also understandable from their talk, Trump said that there will be no ceasefire. So Putin doesn't agree on the ceasefire even 60 days, and he told about it to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump said about it that no ceasefire. And if there is no ceasefire, the referendum is impossible to conduct. Under strikes, during the wartime, martial law, it's impossible, simply. Moreover, I would say that this referendum is impossible according to Ukrainian constitution, and I've told about it in one of my recent videos, that all of the questions about sovereignty, territorial integrity, they cannot be voted by people even. They're robust, they're in constitution, that's it. To change it, you need to change the constitution. To change the constitution, you need majority of the votes from the parliament, not just a simple majority, but overwhelming majority, like I remember 300 votes out of 400 with something members of parliament should vote for it. And to organize the change, you need to drop the martial law, which is impossible because it undermines Ukrainian security by the time there is a full-scale war. That's why the plan was to ceasefire for at least 60 days, to make this referendum for Ukrainian people to say no, and later on just to continue the war. Russians also say it like that Ukraine just is looking for a break to create new defense lines, to reorganize the army for defense, to mobilize more people, and then people vote no, Ukraine may be more robust in defense. And for this reason, Putin will not stop the war or ceasefire. Moreover, 3 days ago, he mentioned that any sort of the peace agreement for now, it has no meaning for Russia. Or how he said its translation from Russian, that the meaning of the ceasefire is heading towards zero, something like that. It's close to zero, so they will reach their goals in a military way. Well, good luck with that. We see how Russia occupies Pokrovsk and Mirnograd for more than a year already, and just for the recent few months they're more or less successful there. But it took them how many losses, how much time, and they want to take Donbass, the most fortified area, just like that. It will again take them years potentially to do it. So Ukraine will not give those territories just like that, especially with the current ratio of the Russian losses. Then Russia loses at least 8 times more people compared to Ukraine. Usually it's 1 to 3, so 1 Ukrainian soldier versus 3 of the Russians, because they're attacking. But now with those stupid even infiltration attacks and midwave attacks, obviously Russia loses way more because Ukraine mostly uses drones. So people are asking whether something new happened. I wouldn't say so. Just some minor news about this new Trump's attitude towards Russian and Ukrainian strikes. He basically equalizes those. Some of the details also about potential referendum, that Russia is not willing to ceasefire, so referendum is not possible for now, even though I think Zelensky wants it to be conducted, but it's illegal according to Ukrainian constitution. And that's pretty much it. Maybe Trump once again confirms that he's been influenced deeply by Russia. Definitely there is Russian propaganda spread by Donald Trump. All the time he speaks about Russian-Ukrainian war. It's very terrible. Yeah, no one expected United States of America to fall that low, to spread this disinformation and sugarcoat the aggressor state. No meaning of the good, no meaning of bad, just pure greediness, profit. That's all about Donald Trump. The only good thing about this particular meeting, it was that there was no direct harassment of Zelensky this time. It was quite a friendly meeting, let's say, with a dinner, with a press conference, with mutual respect. Zelensky handled himself as hard as he could, not to react too much on this Russian propaganda bullshit vomiting out from Donald Trump's mouth. So there were no any new ultimatums on Ukraine stated by Americans. Absolutely. So the Pearl program will continue to work. Ukraine will continue to receive intelligence support. That's good news, absolutely, because before, then this 28 point peace plan was proclaimed, delivered as the Trump's peace plan. There were reports citing the sources in Washington, D.C., Trump's circle, that Trump is willing to halt even the Pearl program for Ukraine, plus intelligence support. Well, it didn't happen, and judging on the signs and that friendly-like meeting, it will not happen in the coming future. That's good, and that is what Russia actually wants to achieve with those peace agreements, to cancel the entire support of Ukraine. And also Russia wants allies to clash between each other, Europeans and Americans, and judging on the new security policy of the United States that was signed by Donald Trump, America definitely is looking at European Union as on competitor, potential enemy. And if you listen to what J.D. Vance says, luckily he wasn't presented yesterday on the meeting, but this is a very harsh rhetoric towards allies and sugarcoating rhetorics towards Russia and potentially even China. By the way, China started new military exercises today. I'm going to review it in my today's update about Ukraine and situation in the world, as I usually do. But here, those videos are just for me to speak about particular topic, like for example, yesterday it was the meeting between Zelensky and Donald Trump. Also the good sign about the meeting that there was the conversation later on between Zelensky, Trump and European allies. Ukraine still has the backup from European partners, most of them. And even the military-industrial complex of some of the countries, like for example United Kingdom, it starts to rise, to grow, and there are some of the news even about cruise missile that was designed especially for Ukraine. So potentially Ukraine may obtain some of the tool to hit not just Russian refineries but the infrastructural objects. People ask sometimes, what about the Kerch Bridge? Well, the Kerch Bridge is a problem, definitely. Russia uses it as the main supply artery to Crimea, and later on they may send their forces to the southern part of Ukraine, which has now been occupied. That's how they, for example, reinforce Zaporizhia direction. And Ukraine now doesn't have those robust tools to kaput that bridge, because that piece of construction is very heavy, it's huge, it's robust. And also one more factor that I think our allies are not supporting the idea to really grind down that bridge completely. There were multiple of the attempts done by Ukraine. The most recent one happened, I think, this year. In the beginning, it was a drone boat or drone submarine, I don't remember. But that kaboom, it just partially damaged one of the columns. So Ukraine needs potentially something bigger. And this new cruise missile that our partners or allies, I may call, from the United Kingdom design, it may carry up to 200 kilograms of the payload. That's 2 times bigger than in FP2 drone. And this cruise missile is very fast, it's nimble, unlike Flamingo. We understand that Flamingo has the ratio of success just 20%. So potentially Ukraine may have this option to kaput even this piece of the infrastructure or something even more important, I would say. And what is more important than the Kerch Bridge? Well, of course, Russian oil ports. Novorossiysk, Tuapse, and ports in the Krasnodarsky Krai. Ukraine attacked Novorossiysk the last month, and it was a successful attack, especially if we speak about kaboom of the Russian S-400 air defense systems. But still, port later on, at least partially, it renewed its operation. So Ukraine still needs some of the tool, very effective, to conduct those operations more precisely and more effective, with a great probability for Russia not being able to use their oil export at all for extensive period of time, maybe even for several months or several years it could be. Well, I would say that Ukraine has that tool already. It is called Neptune missile, a long variant of Neptune. It is very effective, almost 100% effective, but it requires lots of the resources to produce those missiles, and Ukraine doesn't have those actual physical capabilities. For Flamingo, everything is more simple. It's basically a missile that is made in garage, just the garage is big, very simple components, old engines, some of the old Soviet bombs that were converted into the warheads, so everything is very easy there compared to Neptune. But Neptune requires lots of the funds, I mean this project, so maybe guys from the United Kingdom, they thought, okay, maybe we're gonna come out with our project separate. We're gonna produce those missiles at home in UK and send them to Ukraine. It could be even more effective. So thanks our partners who still support Ukraine, Europeans, and by the way, Americans. I understand that America is not just about Donald Trump, as well as Ukraine is not just about Zelensky, or Russia is not just about Putin. Sadly, Russians, they still support their leader, their policy mostly. Yeah, there is the great opposition there. They're just calm, or they exited the country, because if they start to protest, they're all gonna be jailed, sent to some of the gulag or something. But majority of Russians, they still support Russian's regime, and they do not understand why Ukraine bombs them. I watch those Russian videos on Telegram channels, how they film some of the kabooms. They're always surprised, oh, crazy hoholes, they're bombing us. What have we done to them? Like, they do not understand, most of the Russians. For them, this special military operation that Putin started, it's all somewhere on TV, you know, it's happening in parallel world, alternate reality. But no, it's a real life, and Russians will also feel circumstances. And sometimes I also have the question, what's my attitude then? Some of the Ukrainian drones or missiles hit even Russian civilian infrastructure. Well, my response is always that it's not the target, not the primary target of Ukrainian drones or missiles. Ukraine never aims towards civilian buildings. Ukraine targets Russian refineries, military bases, and so on. Russia may intercept Ukrainian drones, they may use electronic warfare, and in this case, yes, drones, missiles, they hit some of the buildings. Also, maybe sometimes it's miscalculation of Ukraine, and the drone flies very low and hits some of the very tall building. It happens, but who started it? Russia. It's the war. And if we speak about survival in existential war, there is no limit for self-defense. So yes, civilians, they die. Mostly they die in Ukraine, sometimes in Russia. But for most of the Russians, this logic doesn't work. They blame Ukraine, not their president who started this war. It is what it is. Oh, we have just a new comment from Peskov, a spokesman of Kremlin, that Ukraine should withdraw the forces from Donbass to ceasefire. That's it. The war will continue. Nothing will happen for the next couple of years while Russia gradually occupies Ukrainian territories. Unfortunately, Ukraine doesn't have enough resources to withstand against all of the Russian attacks. So slowly, but Russia will propel forward while Putin is alive, while Russian regime is in power. This war will continue. It's already understandable. Putin's life goal is to restore Soviet Union, Russian Empire, and he tries to achieve it with every possible mean. And Donald Trump is just one more tool, his diplomatic warfare to press Ukraine, Zelensky, and he is successful, as I already mentioned. Yeah, Donald Trump is not supporting Ukraine as Joe Biden with direct military help and so on. So for Ukraine, it's harder. Yeah, it's harder this year than previous one, and we'll see how it may go for situation on the front lines in the coming years. I'm saying about years, I'm sure about it, guys. And there is also the plan of Russians to escalate even further. They may start some of the provocation in Baltic states, but that's the topic of another video. Well, I guess that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna record kind of often those videos, because for me it's just like a variant to go out from my cave and film something. Yeah, I do it mostly for myself. I'm sorry, I understand you like my videos, but especially those kind of the videos like you watch, this one, I do it for myself. To get out and speak with you directly, I understand that I need to film most of the time, so it's just an excuse for me to walk, to hike. And guys, if you want to support my job, you're very welcome to do it. The link for my Patreon page is in the video description right below, or you may join membership if you watch me on YouTube, or if on Spotify, you may subscribe for the channel. If you don't have this opportunity to support me in that way, just like this video and subscribe to boost in algorithms. Thank you so much for doing it as well. You're awesome. Stay awesome. Ciao.